Hello there, fellow gamer girls. Today is a pretty average day in trucking life. I'm in beautiful California, which I've been to a few times the last couple of trips, but I haven't filmed any of them. I've been in a really kind of funk, I guess, when it comes to doing much of anything other than work and sleep. Dealing with a lot of depression and overall nihilism. So there's a lot of days where I find I'll spend all day, I'm excited to finish my day because I'm gonna play some video games, and then I get to the truck stop and I sit there for 20 minutes just staring out the window I guess I'll go to bed. I'm a little bit not worried, but I've kind of become more aware in the last little bit that I'm starting to become too much like the negative aspects of truckers that I come across. I used to kind of make fun of a lot of guys. You see guys in the truck stop, they park, and all they do in their downtime is sit in their driver's seat and smoke cigarettes and stare out the window. And I've always been someone who craves mental stimulation, right? So video games and books or movies. But now I find I'm spending less time thinking and more time sitting there staring out the window. And while I don't smoke cigarettes, the principle is still the same. And I don't like that. I don't like that I no longer have that much interest in large story-driven video games. I have a bunch of games that have come out over the last 2 years or so, that almost none of which I finished. Probably the most notable one for me is Death Stranding. I'm still only halfway through that game, and I genuinely enjoy that game, but I just don't have the time or the patience anymore for things like cutscenes or slow gameplay. I played Red Dead Redemption 2 when it came out 2 years ago. I beat it. It was great. And I got a PS4 Pro. I keep telling myself I want to go back into the story, and I can't do it. I got through I got out of the tutorial part, to the mountains, and then now I'm kind of bored. I'm watching cutscenes. I'm kind of bored. I'm walking around in the game and I'm bored. I'm I never used to be bored by this kind of stuff, right? And I find I keep coming back to American Truck Simulator or Phasmophobia, little games that take very minimal time and effort to get into and out of, right? Games that don't necessarily have an ending or a story or any sort of clear cut, any clear cut requirement for you to stick around for say an hour or more of playtime, right? Part of it is that for most nights I drive for most days I drive for almost 11 hours, and I try not to take more than 10 hours off, so that only leaves me with 2 hours to eat, shower, go to the bathroom or whatever, and then maybe do something relaxing like play video games or watch a movie or something like that, and then go to bed if I want 8 hours of sleep, right? Most nights I find if I do play video games, I'm only getting 5 or 6 hours of sleep, and that today it's the same thing. I only slept for 6 hours, right? Which for me is enough, but when you do that concurrently, it starts to wear down. I was having a conversation with my brother about how I've talked about this before in some of my videos. I'm seriously contemplating getting out of trucking, and it's such a frustrating thing to deal with, because on the one hand I love trucks. I love pretty much any truck that's on the road. I love trucks, and I love driving trucks. Right? I really enjoy driving trucks. I'm having fun right now, and I'm getting paid for it. But trucking has fundamentally changed, even from the 4 years that I've been in it. Let alone, guys like my dad who are over 30 years in the industry now. The pay is abhorrent. It's terrible.
Take the interchange on the left.
I looked into it, and for company driver wages in 1980, the average annual income for a company truck driver was $38,500. That dollar amount adjusted to today's rate is $111,700. Right? The average company driver is making between, on the low end, $40,000 to $50,000 to upwards of $80,000. But that is now the wage has technically gone down as inflation has gone up, right? That wage, right, adjusted to today's wage is basically what I make right now, right? Like my take home is around, it adds up to about $1 per mile. So, the wages are terrible. I'm not doing too great financially. You get to a point now where if things go bad for a stretch of time, you're not, it's not very easy to dig out of it. It takes a long time. And with the way things are going with the world, with the industry, and with things like more smaller things like my truck, right? The money is not how do I word this? It's being replaced at such a slow rate that if something were to happen fairly shortly after something else, let's say my truck breaks down, it's done. I'm bankrupt because I've not made enough money back since this summer's abysmal income to compensate for anything like a breakdown. Really, fuck, dude, you could have use your blinker and maybe give me more than a couple of feet. That brings me to the next reason I'm contemplating getting out of trucking. COVID is probably the culprit. But I've seen in the last year a massive influx of both aggressive and egregious, obnoxious driving. There's a channel I watch, Donut Media. So they've got a couple of different, technically channels, right? There's Donut, which I guess they do a lot of discussions on cars and the car culture and what icons and stuff. They did a video on the Bronco and talked about how overlanding and stuff is becoming really popular again. But one of the last videos I watched, they talked about how in the wake of the pandemic, at the outset of the pandemic, the volume of traffic decreased anywhere from 70 to 90% across the U.S. Yet traffic accidents doubled. And the reason is that with few cars on the road, the cars that were on the road were driving incredibly fast, incredibly aggressively, because suddenly they had nobody else around them. And then the few times they did have somebody else around them, well, they're both driving fast and aggressively, and they end up getting into accidents. So the actual accident rate has doubled. One of the points that he made is that since the onset of the pandemic, right, the number of traffic has come up to almost 90% of what it used to be, pre-pandemic levels, right? So traffic is almost as busy now as it used to be before the pandemic. However, the driving habits have remained the same as when the pandemic was in full swing. So now you have, not just I don't know how to put it in easy numbers, but you now have, again, the traffic all around me, but people are driving much more aggressively. So I've gotten it's a combination of both more just generally aggressive behavior. Like I've had a lot more instances of people who are, you know, they don't want to put up with being behind a truck, so they're doing like dangerous things. Like I've been passed on the shoulder a lot more, right? I've been a lot more, and it seems to be like I got to start. I'm getting real fucking paranoid now when I get to intersections, because I've had a lot of instances at like traffic lights where I've got to make a left and I'm in the left turn lane. But of course, as a semi truck, like I'm gonna you know, take the turn as wide as possible, and I'll have a car come around me from the right lane, which is, you know, a straight/right turn lane, and make a left and fucking cut me off. And they just go on about their business like nothing happened. And, you know, I am kind of left there either having to slam on the brakes, the worst case, or, you know, best case, I saw him coming around and just didn't accelerate very hard. But it's all like people are becoming very ignorant of the rules of right of way, and, you know, like the different rules, like the laws involving like lanes, right? And what lane you need to be in to, you know, make a turn, like a right turn or a left turn. The other one is I'm noticing a massive influx of like actual targeted aggression, right? Road rage. I had a few weeks ago and this was in Canada, this wasn't in the US. I was on Highway 401, just coming out of Toronto, and there was construction, so they had the highway come down to one lane. There was I don't know, he's not like a businessman, because it was only a fucking Hyundai, but he had a convertible Hyundai, because it was still warm enough, you know, a month ago, to occasionally get the day where you could go out in a convertible, even in Canada. He tried to get in front of me before the left lane ended, and he couldn't. There were cones there. He didn't want to hit the cones. I wasn't like I'd even tried to block him in. Like that time, it was just you know, there were cones coming, and he just, you know, he tried for it and wasn't going to make it, so he backed off and wide. But then he passed me on the shoulder because there was a wide shoulder, and forced his way in front of me. And as he forced his way in front of me, his car disappeared in front of my truck, so I thought I was going to hit him. But his middle finger could stick up over the hood. So he was mad because he couldn't get around me at the cones. And again, even though in most times when you're not stressed out, I guess, you know, you just acknowledge, okay, like, you know, I wasn't going to beat him, you know, in front of there, so you just get behind, get through the construction, and go around. But he was mad at me for being there. It wasn't even that I, you know, didn't slow down or stop. He was just pissed that he had to fucking, oh god, that he had to pass on the fucking shoulders. That's what I boiled down to. I lost it. I came closer to hurting somebody that day with my truck than I ever have in the entire time I've been a licensed driver in a vehicle. There was like pretty much once he got in front of me, the right lane opened up because it was an on-ramp, so there was a lane merging onto the highway. There was nobody coming, so I got next to him. And the second I opened my window, he began calling me, like, you know, every insult he could. I mean, I could barely hear him. You know, I could hear faggot and fuck you and, you know, dumb truck driver and shit. And finally, I told him, "Are you ready to fucking die?" And he told me to go fuck myself. So I just fucking drove into the lane. I stopped myself. But at that time, I was mad enough. Like, I started the maneuver planning to fucking just, I'm going to be in that lane. If he's still there, he's dead. If he stops, then he's behind me. He slammed on the brakes, right? Fucking realized what was happening. I went back over to the right. It shook him up. He told me I was crazy, and then floored it and got out of there. And again, I'm left sitting there kind of conflicted, because, like, on the one hand, that motherfucker deserved what he got. He deserved more than what he got. Like, even objectively, like, if an outside person had observed the whole thing, they would have said the same thing. But I also got to a point where I almost injured or killed somebody because, you know, over harsh words, right? And again, because I'm not exempt from this increased amount of road rage because of COVID and because of traffic, right? It's I'm not speaking like somebody who's somehow above all of that, right? I am just as susceptible, right? Because I've been dealing with the way traffic has been and the way people have been. Like, my life hasn't been disrupted as much as other people's has with COVID. But I've been on the receiving end of, people who are angry because their life has been disrupted. So I also get angry, right? And stressed out. And I've realized, like, my health is starting to worry me. Like, I'm 31. I'm not particularly old, but I'm very overweight. Last week, in the last week, I've started to have the typical old man issue of, like, every night I gotta get up in the middle of the night and go take a piss. Up until a week ago, I slept through the whole fucking night. And now all of a sudden, every night, I gotta get up and take a piss. Right? And I gotta piss more frequently, right? Which could be an onset of diabetes, right? Because again, 90% of the food that's available to truck drivers out here is very high in sugar, high in starch, high in salt. So even though I'm reducing my calories, a lot of the times the food I'm taking in is still not good, right? So I'm beginning to get worried about my mental as well as physical health. And the reality is that that's not going to change while I'm doing this job, right? There are some things you can do, right? You can exercise on next to your truck, but your life doesn't have a schedule. There is no consistency, right? I've had days where, I got up at 6 in the morning, I trucked till 6 at night, shut her down, I'm able to get a workout in, and I might have it like 2 days in a row like that, but then the next day I get up at 6 in the morning, I get to my shipper, and I sit there for fucking 10 hours. And then they tell me I gotta leave. Well, now it's fucking midnight by the time I shut down. Well, I'm not gonna do a workout. And then I gotta get up at 6 in the morning again. So suddenly your whole routine is gone, right? It's the same thing with diet. Grocery shopping's getting to be incredibly difficult on the road right now. A lot of grocery stores like Walmart's have been really cracking down on trucks parking there. So now, like, again, it gets risky. It used to be, like, when I first started driving truck, I would just call. I'd call Walmart that I was going to stay at and ask to speak to the manager and say, hey, like, I'm coming in with a truck. I got to park. I want to park there for the night. I'm going to buy some groceries and stuff. Is it okay if I park there for the night? Universally, at the time, they'd all say, just try to park at the back there where you're not going to take up a whole bunch of parking spots, and no problem. But now trucks are getting booted, and we're getting the barnacle or whatever they call it on your fucking windshield. And you got to pay $500-600 cash, and tow truck drivers are showing up with fucking guns to fucking make sure they can pay. Because if you fucking somehow get the barnacle off, you've damaged their property, right? So, and I've watched a couple like YouTube videos where the guy has said, like, well, the manager said I could park here. And it's like, well, that was the manager on that shift, but this manager doesn't want you to park there, right? So again, it's becoming too risky. Like, some guys get, literally just stop the grocery shop and are getting booed, right? They're not even there to park for the night. They stop for 20 minutes and they've already got a boot on their truck. So grocery shopping is becoming difficult. So when you run out of, stuff you brought from home, all you really have are things you buy from truck stops, right? The cost of goods and services at truck stops is getting more expensive. It's a cyclical issue. Drivers things are getting expensive, so drivers are making less. Well, I'm not sure where it starts. It's a chicken or the egg scenario, but basically, drivers are making less money, so they're spending less money at restaurants. They're bringing more food from home. As a result, restaurants are making less money, so they're charging more money for the food they have to compensate. And that means more drivers cannot afford to pay that amount of money, so they're less and less are going to restaurants. So restaurants are closing, right? That's why, truck stops that have like a Burger King or whatever are staying open, because that's relatively cheap food, and truckers and even the general public will stop there. But the actual sit-down restaurants are disappearing, right? And again, it's a problem that there is no clear person to point a finger at. It's just general economy issues. But the general public and the restaurant staff point at the truck driver and say, well, they're not coming in anymore. They're all getting cheap. So this is why we had to close, right? When, again, a lot of the issue is that truck drivers just don't make enough money to justify, you know, a $25 meal every fucking night. Like, you know, that's $125 in a 5-day period. Like, that's, you know, my sister spends that in groceries on her full fucking family. Like, you know, again, it's not a, it's doable, but it's not practical, right? That's not how you're going to build, you know, any sort of savings or anything like that, right? So, you know, that's a big problem. Let's see if we're gonna go into the scale here. But I got a pre-pass and I'm empty, but it is California, so you never know. Let's see what it says. I got a pre-pass. We're good. But yeah, so again, there's a lot of issues with the industry, and I'm becoming more and more depressed. Right? I realize when I look back on things, when I started driving truck, I was almost immediately dealing with a lot more stress than I had as a pilot car driver. And I made less money. I was making an average, I had a salary of $1,500 take home a week as a pilot car driver. As a truck driver, I was making about $600 a week as a company truck driver. And I was a quote unquote company pilot car driver. You know, my boss owned the vehicle, and I was allowed to take it home and do whatever with it. But it was, you know, he paid for the vehicle. He paid for fuel while I was working with it. All he asked is that if I was, you know, using it for personal shit, I'd pay for the fuel there. And that was no big deal. Like that worked out pretty good, because at the time, I mean, I didn't have a car at the time, so like I didn't have a vehicle payment, yet I had a vehicle. So that was pretty good. But you know, when I started driving truck, I needed a car, which I already had by the time I got my license. I was between vehicles when I was piloting, but I had a vehicle again by the time I got my CDL. But where was I? Yeah, so I suddenly had to pay for a car, but my pay dropped by fucking half. So all of a sudden, you know, you're not, I don't know, I'm in a shitty spot. Look at this. That fucking guy wanted to come around me, but needed that exit. At least he didn't hit the fucking brakes as he came to the right. But like, that kind of shit is happening a lot more. Right? There's a lot more instances of people like and I mean, I've made this comment about traffic before, but like, it seems like genuinely a lot of people now are driving as though there are no other vehicles around them. Like, people are being very, very aggressive, and the me first attitude has just skyrocketed, right? So I find that my financial security has gotten worse. I've had instances where I've made really, really good money as an owner-operator for a month or a year. And then, like, last year I made a lot of money. This year I've made so little that I've lost all the money I made from last year. So what did I'm no farther ahead. I gotta move back in with my fucking parents, and I own a truck. Right? I'm no farther ahead than before I ever bought a truck. And now my truck's out of warranty. Right? Things are starting to go bad on it because it's 2.5 years old. And I don't have the money to pay for it. And I said, I want to be home every night. I want to work a job where I'm home at the end of the day. And I realize, like, I'm focusing on that part of it, but I realize that I'm going to have to, that means that I got to get up in the morning, get my coffee, commute to work, do whatever my job is, and then commute home at the end of the day, right? And I understand that most jobs are not going to be as fun in the basic, like, what you're doing as work, as driving a truck, right? Again, when things are good driving truck, they're amazing. Right? I get to start my day when I want, right? I just truck along. I don't have to answer to anybody for bathroom breaks or any of that shit. Right? I can just, I feel like taking a piss. Oh, there's a rest area. Let's jump in there and, go rock one. Like, I don't have to as long as I'm getting to my deliveries on time, right? And that's like that is key, right? If I'm fucking up all the time, then dispatch is gonna start asking like, well, you stop for 45 minutes here at a rest area, and then you stop for another 40, like an hour up the road, like, and then you're fucking calling us, telling us you're gonna be 2 hours late for your delivery. Like, what are you fucking doing? But and I'm also blessed. I'm not typically running on super tight time schedules. But like I don't have to stop, or I shouldn't say have to stop. I don't have to ask somebody for permission, like I said, to go use the restroom or to take a break for anything, right? I have the luxury of being able to pick and choose, when I stop, and the same thing, like, this is my job. I have a job that allows me to fucking film myself talking to a camera and venting about whatever I feel like, right? Like, it doesn't matter what I talk about. I could shit all over my boss if I wanted to, right? He wouldn't be happy about it, but it's I'm in my truck and it's my space and I can do what I want, right? I mean, obviously I can't break the law, but you know what I mean. And again, it's the same. Like, I can put on music or put on an audiobook. You can't do that in most jobs, in most regular jobs. And I find, like, most of the jobs that I've done over the years, and this is where, like, my next step of life is, and where it's difficult, is I need to find out what I want to do. Because my, what was I going to say here? All the jobs I've worked before getting into, like, the trucking industry, right? So, again, I'll count the pilot car stuff as part of the trucking industry. I wasn't driving a truck, but I was working with trucks. Before I got into the trucking industry as a whole, I worked, like, factory jobs. I worked for a little while. It just popped in my head. At a buddy of mine had a machine shop. I worked there for a week and got fired. Because I had no idea what I was doing. They're like, hey, we're gonna get you to sandblast all these components, and they gave me a rudimentary teaching on how to run the sandblaster. So I fucking sandblasted it, and most of the stuff was all right, but in a couple pieces, like, we went too far on this. This is, you actually wrecked this. So fuck, like, you never told me that, like, first they never said, like you can, be careful. You can fucking burn holes through shit, right? And while I already kind of guessed. Right, the product looked fine to me when it was done, but they could see things that I didn't because I wasn't educated on what I was sandblasting. And that job sucked. Like, every day. I was only there for a week, and every day felt like fucking like a year. Like, it was fucking brutal. And fuck, do I want to take this rest area? I really don't. Like, I want to get to my delivery, but I also still have, like, an hour of driving on like state highways and 2-lane roads and traffic. So I get the sneaking suspicion that I won't have a chance to go pee before I get to my delivery or my pickup. And there's, like, a mild tug, but I don't really want to stop yet. So fuck it, we'll just carry on, and maybe I'll hate myself later. I need to decide what it is that I would want to do outside of driving a truck, because there's lots of things that sound cool or fun, but they're not necessarily things that I will be able to do, right? I've always been interested in being a police officer, but a police officer makes less money than I do, right? And a police officer, like not only is becoming a police officer difficult, there is no guarantee at the end of it that I will become a police officer, right? There's a good fucking chance that I'll have gone to school for nothing, and then
take the interchange on the right.
I've lost money as well as time. I also thought about, like, things like night security, right? But again, I like being up during the day. I don't like working at night, so I'm immediately putting myself in a situation where I'm not going to like what I'm doing as much as I could. Most days security is like mall cop shit. I don't want to be a mall cop, right? I want to be, like, again, it's my it sounds ideal if I could get over the fact that I'm working at night. It sounds ideal because through the course of my job, I'm more or less alone. However, I still go home at the end of my shift, and therefore get to like have a social life, right, or like a more normal home life. So it's kind of a catch-22, right? Because, and I don't know what a security guard makes for money, right? I doubt it's that great. And again, that's the other thing, is almost any job I do without a significant expense, what's the word? Without a significant investment in my education, is likely to pay less than what I make right now. I think there's caveats to that, right? When I talked about selling my truck and going back to being a company driver, my dad was just disgusted by the idea. Because like, well, you'll make less money. I said, yeah, but I have less bills. Like, right now, yeah, I'm making like close to $20,000 a month, maybe a little less, but I got over $10,000 a month in fucking bills. And and I also pay fuel. Like that $20,000 is gross, right? So I'm only making like maybe $800-900 at the end of it, because I got to pay for fuel and all that. Like this pay I just got because I only did a short trip last week. This pay is just I just put it all on my credit card for fuel. Like I'm not paying any bills this week. It's all paying for fuel to get home and start my next week, right? So getting home will be part of my next week. So again, it's a bit of a, I don't know what you call it, kind of fucking stupid, because it's like I'm not actually making that much money, right? On paper, like my gross income is phenomenal, but what I actually see out of it after everything that's involved in the running expenses is done is about what I make as a company driver. But I have far more headaches, right? I have, again, the vehicle breaking down. I've got, if there were to be a claim, like I'm responsible for it, like if freight were damaged. I mean, I think I'm okay in this place, but like when I did the flatbed stuff, like I was liable if something was damaged, right? When I hauled glass, I was liable if the glass was damaged. So there's always, this place is pretty okay. And again, doing like hauling what I haul, like none of this stuff is like yeah, if I were to climb up to the top of the bridge ahead of me and drive off the fucking side, if I had a full load, it'd be fucking destroyed. Like, if I tried to fucking destroy my freight, I could destroy my freight. Most of the stuff we haul is pretty robust, and it's pretty well secured, like palletized and shit. And it's loaded in the trailer fairly tight, so it doesn't have room to move around. But where was I here? Kilometers away from my turn there. I gotta double check my fucking GPS. I might stop the video here eventually. I wanted to get some filming of this next little stretch, because I got San Francisco to the left of me, and then like, I don't know, fucking, that's the San Francisco Bay, and then I think it's Pueblo Bay or San Pablo Bay. So the road kind of basically runs on a sandbar between the two bays, which is kind of neat. But where was I? Yeah, so it apparently there's also, like, I was looking on my satellite, there's some red lines up here which indicate that traffic is very slow. And then I zoomed in on satellite view, and even the satellite photo, which is like 3 years old, just shows cars bumper to bumper. So apparently wherever the slowdown is a popular spot for cars to fucking slow down. But yeah, I got I don't think that's like the open Pacific Ocean, but that's a fucking bay in front of me, and then there's more to the right. Where was I? But yeah, so there's again, I'm looking at trying to find a career that will kind of meet my needs, right? Like I worked in factory jobs most of my life, and again, you're home every night, but the pay was abysmal, and at least for me, I was a temp worker. Oh shit, this goes down the wrong fucking lane. That's probably why it's on the fucking slope somewhere up here. And the job was terrible. Like you're doing the exact same thing hundreds of times all day, and it just again, it wears on you. You're tired, you're sore. So again, like my brother, that's what he does, but he makes more money because he stayed there for 10 years. He's at like $25 an hour. And that's, he likes that he's home every day. But he hates his job. He has no problem talking about how much he hates his fucking job. Right? So again, it's a case of like, I hate aspects of my job, but the core job that I do, I genuinely enjoy. So again, it's my dad is kind of right. I've talked to him about it. He's like, you need to decide what you want to do. And the problem is I don't know what I want to do. I have a lot of different things that sound fun or interesting, but not a lot of them that are potentially things that I can do, right? I'm very fidgety. I have ADHD, so it gets difficult to study. It gets difficult to stay focused on a task. This job is pretty handy because there's always something either to look at or something happening, right? Or again, there's ways to distract yourself with audiobooks and music. So like, I'm not, sitting in a classroom trying to listen to a teacher. I would always either fall asleep or fucking like draw stick figures all class, right? I was never good at paying attention. So, any career choice that's going to involve me going back to school is doable, but really, really difficult for me. There's also the balancing of the rest of my life while I'm going to school. Again, right now education's online anyways. My brother keeps making that point, but doing what I do, I can't, again, I've had a lot of people say, well, just like, you do online schooling and when you're done work for the day. It's like I'm not done at the same time every day. So if I'm doing like an online college course and I'm supposed to be online at a certain time for a thesis or a fucking what's the word I'm looking for, like a speech or whatever, I can't guarantee that A, I'll be fucking done work on time, or B, that I'll be in a place where I have decent enough internet to watch the fucking video. Right? So again, most people, you can fucking get an education off like go to night school or get online education, but you work till, let's say 5 in the afternoon, you go home and you listen to your seminar while you're eating dinner, or 8, whatever it is, 7, 8 o'clock at night, right? But it's consistent. You're not one day working till 8 o'clock at night and the next day you're done at fucking 3 in the afternoon, but you got to be in bed for 6 because you got to get up at 2 in the morning the next day. Like, this job is there is no structure whatsoever with regards to scheduling at this job. Things change, right? Like I might get to my delivery and discover that they don't have the load ready yet, so I got to sit there for 5 or 6 hours. Well, great, I got 5 or 6 hours, but my lecture at the university that I'm supposed to watch might still not happen until fucking 6 o'clock tonight. Well, I'm going to be driving then because I'm going to sit here all the fucking day. I don't get to choose. Well, then I guess I'm going to sit here all night and get that lecture in, because A, I'll get kicked off the property. B, if the load is late, well, then I'm in shit. You can't pass me, sucker. I was going to go in the right lane because I thought there was more right lane. The car was going to go in the right lane and go around me. But then the lane ended, so he might think we decided to fucking block him in. I don't know. But yeah, it's a difficult situation because I don't know. A, I don't know what I would want to go to school for. B, like I said, I need to dedicate time to school. So there's a couple of approaches to this.
What's the question? I'll listen.
If I sell my truck right now, I'm looking at getting between $20,000 and $30,000 in my pocket, right? 10 of that, pretty much right off the top, has to pay, my parents back. A buddy of mine to loan me some money back. To pay back all the money that I borrowed to make it through 2020. So that leaves me with $20,000. So that's a decent amount of money for like pretty much any college education I want. But that's not necessarily enough money for, say, a semester of a college course or several years, depending on what I would go for, and to stay at home. So I need to have a job, right? So again, you have a job where you're, you're doing whatever, working at a grocery store or something. Which I also, like, if I have to do it, I'll do it, but it's also something where it's like, man, I was an owner-operator truck driver, now I'm stuck in cans next to a fucking teenager. Outwardly, I look like a failure. And again, if I were to, if that were the decision I wanted to make for myself in terms of a career, like, I would do it. I'm not so proud that, I would willingly go down the tubes, financially and career-wise, just because I didn't want to stock cans and look poor for a week or like a couple of months. But again, I don't know if that's what I want to do. Like, I don't know if going to school, like, what I would go to college or university for. The other one that I want to come off the road for is my physical health. I would like to, I would like to take a month off. A month with no bills, no anything, right? Take that month to go to the gym every day, right? Try to lose weight, try to get in shape so that I feel better about myself. And then decide while I'm doing that, because I have the time, to decide, okay, what do I want to pursue for a career, right? And then take the steps required to pursue that career. If I wait another 2.5 years, I can, when the truck is paid for, whatever I can sell it for, I get the 100% of that money. So probably around $80,000. Now, $80,000 is a good chunk of money to, especially if I'm still living with my parents or living on campus, let's say. Well, if COVID is, if at that point COVID is reduced to the point where, normal education resumes, I could get a place on or near campus and go to school, right? But again, the biggest thing is what do I go to school for, right? Being a police officer sounds fucking cool, but I'm pretty sure that there's a lot of aspects of that job that I will both not have the attention span for, but also just not be good at, right? I'm not good at reading people. I'm on the autism spectrum, which means that it can be difficult for me sometimes, and I've learned ways around it, but it can be, first off, difficult for me to tell when somebody's lying to me, and secondly, difficult to be hard on people, right? I have a tendency, even people that I disagree with or would otherwise, not want to have a conversation with, I have a tendency to, like, not placate, but be diplomatic, right? Which, on one hand, is a good characteristic when you're dealing with the general public as a police officer. But on the other hand, like, when I'm dealing with a hardened criminal that's, we caught him and he's oh man, the other guy had the drugs, he threw them at me and he's crying his eyes out. Like, there's gonna be I'm gonna have to fight a huge part of me that's like, oh man, this poor fucking guy, his fucking buddy threw the drugs at him and ran away, and he's, maybe not fully innocent, but he's not a bad guy, and, right? It's gonna be hard for me to say, no, he's a fucking criminal. And again, I mean, I might not. Like, it might be part of police foundations that kind of teach you to see and recognize those things and deal with them accordingly. But it's also, like, not guaranteed, right? So the video might stop here. I'm just gonna check the old Google Maps to make sure that the right turn that I see is the right turn that I gotta make, because I was pretty sure I didn't have to make a right turn in fucking 4 kilometers. But it might be the right road. All that traffic that the GPS showed earlier might be gone. So I'll be, maybe I'll be back, maybe I won't.